The little girl's eyes never left the birthday cakes behind the bakery's glass display. Each one was decorated with bright frosting, colorful flowers, and tiny candles waiting to be lit. She didn't ask for one. She didn't cry. She simply held her mother's hand a little tighter while pretending she wasn't hungry. Then, with trembling courage that no parent should ever need to find, her exhausted mother stepped toward the counter and quietly asked if the bakery had an expired cake they were planning to throw away because her daughter was turning 7 that day, and she wanted her to have at least one birthday wish before another year of hardship stole her smile. Those simple words froze everyone inside the bakery. What no one realized was that a quiet millionaire sitting in the corner had heard every single word. Before we continue, if you believe kindness still exists, that one small act can change someone's entire life, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone you love, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. Your support helps us bring more heartwarming stories like this. The bakery stood on a busy street in Portland, Oregon, where expensive offices overlooked sidewalks crowded with people rushing through another ordinary Tuesday. For most customers, it was simply a place to grab fresh bread or coffee before work. For Grace Harper, however, walking through those doors felt like swallowing every ounce of pride she had left. Just 6 months earlier, she had been a nursing assistant with steady income, a small apartment, and dreams of giving her daughter, Sophie, a better future. Then an unexpected factory fire destroyed the building where her husband worked. He lost his life helping others escape, leaving Grace alone with crushing debt, unpaid rent, and a little girl who still believed birthdays were magical. Every morning Grace searched for work until her feet ached, but every evening she returned with nothing except another polite rejection. Hunger had become familiar, but watching Sophie slowly stop asking for things hurt far more than any empty stomach. That morning Grace had found $3 inside an old coat pocket. It wasn't enough for groceries, not enough for rent, and certainly not enough for the beautiful birthday cake Sophie had admired through the bakery window every day for the past week. Yet she couldn't bear the thought of letting her daughter's birthday pass without something special. She had heard that bakeries sometimes discarded unsold cakes. Maybe, she hoped, one would still be edible. She wasn't asking for charity. She was simply hoping that what others considered worthless might become the happiest gift in her daughter's life. Near the large front window sat Michael Bennett, a reserved businessman whose face appeared regularly in financial magazines across America. Few people recognized him because he preferred simple clothes and quiet mornings away from luxury hotels and corporate meetings. His technology company employed thousands, and newspapers praised his success, but very few knew the loneliness hidden behind his wealth. Years earlier, he had lost his own wife and young daughter in a tragic highway accident. Since then, birthdays had become painful reminders instead of celebrations. Every year he escaped to a different city, hoping work would silence memories that refused to fade. But when Grace asked for an expired cake, something inside him cracked. Suddenly, he wasn't hearing a stranger's voice. He remembered his own daughter laughing while blowing out birthday candles, her tiny hands covered in frosting, believing her father could fix anything. The bakery manager hesitated. Company policy discouraged giving away expired food because of liability concerns. Several customers looked away, pretending not to hear. Others whispered among themselves. Sophie noticed the uncomfortable silence and gently tugged her mother's sleeve, silently telling her they should leave before anyone felt embarrassed. That quiet gesture broke Michael's heart even more than Grace's request. Children were supposed to dream without limits. This little girl had already learned how to protect adults from feeling guilty. Michael stood slowly and walked toward the counter. He didn't introduce himself or mention his fortune. Instead, he simply asked the staff to prepare the finest birthday cake in the shop, along with fresh bread, pastries, milk, fruit, and enough groceries to feed a family for weeks. Grace immediately refused, insisting she could never accept such generosity from a stranger. But Michael saw dignity, not pride. He gently explained that years ago someone had helped him when life seemed impossible, and today he simply wanted to pass that kindness forward. Grace's eyes filled with tears she had fought to hide for months. Sophie smiled so brightly that even the employees behind the counter began wiping away tears. The birthday cake was covered with white buttercream, fresh strawberries, and delicate pink roses made from icing. When the staff placed 7 tiny candles on top, the entire bakery unexpectedly joined together to sing happy birthday. Office workers, elderly couples, delivery drivers, college students, and tourists who had never met Sophie suddenly became part of the celebration. For the first time since losing her father, Sophie laughed without sadness hiding behind her smile. Grace realized that kindness often arrived from places where hope had completely disappeared. Michael quietly paid the bill and prepared to leave before anyone recognized him. But something stopped him. Watching Grace carefully divide every pastry so Sophie would always receive the biggest piece reminded him of his own wife. He asked Grace about her work experience and listened carefully as she described years of caring for elderly patients. Her compassion impressed him more than any resume ever could. Michael happened to serve on the board of a nonprofit medical foundation that operated clinics across Oregon. Before leaving, he handed Grace a business card with only his first name and told her to call the number the following morning because someone would be expecting her. Grace almost didn't believe it. After so many disappointments, hope felt dangerous. Still, she called. Within 48 hours, she was interviewing for a patient care coordinator position that offered excellent pay, health insurance, flexible hours, and professional training. Her honesty, determination, and experience earned her the job immediately. For the first time in months, she could imagine paying rent on time, buying groceries without counting every coin, and giving Sophie the childhood every loving parent wished for. Meanwhile, Michael returned to his office carrying something far more valuable than another successful business deal. For years he had believed money could solve almost every problem except grief. Yet one frightened mother and one brave little girl had reminded him that compassion healed wounds wealth never could. He began expanding his charitable foundation, creating partnerships with bakeries and grocery stores across the United States so unsold food could safely reach struggling families instead of ending up in dumpsters. Thousands of children eventually celebrated birthdays because one mother's desperate request had changed the heart of a man who thought his own heart had stopped beating years earlier. Months later, Grace and Sophie returned to the same bakery. This time Grace wore her employee badge from the medical clinic, and Sophie carried a neatly wrapped birthday cake of her own. Together they asked the bakery staff to give it to the next family who couldn't afford one. No cameras recorded the moment. No newspaper reported it. But Michael happened to be sitting near the same window once again. He smiled quietly, realizing that kindness never truly ends. It simply travels from one heart to another until strangers become miracles in each other's lives. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who still believes compassion can change the world. Your support allows us to keep sharing stories that inspire hope. Special request: before the story ends, please leave a comment with the words, "Kindness never expires," if you believe even the smallest act of compassion can transform someone's life. As Grace and Sophie walked home carrying hope instead of fear, Michael remained by the bakery window watching people come and go. For the first time in many years, birthdays no longer reminded him only of loss. They reminded him that love continues through the lives we choose to lift. Sometimes the greatest miracle isn't becoming a millionaire. Sometimes it's hearing one quiet question, refusing to look away, and discovering that an expired dream can become someone else's brand new beginning. And in a world that often feels rushed and indifferent, that kind of kindness is the richest legacy anyone could ever leave.